Hello and welcome back to the Lapdown Podcast. My name's Alex. The next voice you're going to hear is Dan Jadzovich, and we're here to talk a little bit about F1. Dan, how are we?
I'm good, mate. Hello to you and hello Formula One fans. How's things? How's post-China for you? Have you recovered?
I wouldn't say there was necessarily a huge need to recover. It was okay racing. It was maybe, we bigged it up a little bit thinking that it could be maybe up there for the year. I think it was fine. I came out of it going, yeah, there was some good racing there. I enjoyed what I saw. There were some moments, and yeah, all in all, sort of like a nice B+ sort of weekend, I think.
Not bad. I think the people's race was pretty good, wasn't it? Let's be honest. And we've come to know and love that. That's how we operate now. First place doesn't exist. I did think when I watched it the other day, you could pretty much sum up. And there goes Max Verstappen.
He's off.
Here comes Max Verstappen, and that's it. You wouldn't even that would be the only time you would have to mention the Dutchman.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it was scary. We maybe were saved a little bit in the main race by the couple of safety cars that we had, because it was scary that in like a 19-lap sprint, he won by 15 seconds when he didn't start. Did he start that one on pole? No, he started that one like P4, didn't he? He's won by 19 seconds from not even the front row. And it's like, oh no. But no, I thought the race kind of showed changeable conditions. We've talked about this before. A couple of tyre ways to go about it, a couple of strategy options, and then you throw a random safety car in there just to mix with it a little bit.
Yeah.
It produces action. And we did have action, and we had action all the way through, right down to the end, because then you had Fernando going, sod it, I'm just going to stick some new tyres on for a laugh, lads. Let's see what happens. Like, you know what? Like, love it. I was happy with that. We've got some talking points to cover off on, and then we've got a couple of weeks, and then we're off to Miami for a logical reason before we then go to Italy.
No one knows why. Other than the fact that maybe DHL need to move their plane from China to Miami. I don't know. I can't think of a logical reason as to why we would go that far. It's not great, is it, for the global kind of carbon footprint for Formula One? Because we spoke the other day, didn't we, about tyres and just give them all the tyres. And we went, well, the thing is, it costs a lot of money. It's like, well, yeah, but so does like flying a few thousand people from one side of the world to the other one and then back again just for the sake of doing it. So, yeah, I mean, as you said, good fun. It's nice the fact that you get these kind of variables in there that just kind of keep people on their toes. It wasn't that long ago that I genuinely think there were some semi-serious conversations with Formula One actually about like dousing the track with water at points as well, just to kind of keep things on their toes. But yeah, all the while that maybe it's probably a good time to go to Dubai.
Yeah.
Get a wet run there, wouldn't we, at the moment?
Yeah. The ultra wets on that one. Turn it into what's the Sail GP, the electric boat racing series.
I was going to say that stuff that they do down in New Zealand.
What do they do in New Zealand?
Have you not seen that? They like race kind of these jet engine super power boat things around fish ponds.
Oh, why not? Let's do that. That sounds good.
If you don't know what that is, I think you probably need to go and check that out.
Yeah, that sounds good. Or here's an idea, right? And it's another AB big idea, right?
Big brain thinking.
I don't know what your familiarity, that's the word I wanted. I don't know what your familiarity is with Formula E, but they did for a while the fan boost. Ooh. And I think they've scrapped it now.
Yes.
But the fan boost was that you could vote online to literally give one driver more power partway through a race. And what about, and hear me out here, the fan safety car, where we can vote as a team to pick a lap where Bert just drives out. No one has to have had an incident, right? But he sort of sits there like the start of a BMX race where there's like the bar literally stopping their wheel at the top of a hill. And then we all vote online, a bit like Driver of the Day. And then suddenly, at some point, the bar just goes and Bert's off and he's in. And we have 3 laps of safety car just because, why not? Let's do it. Let's see what happens.
Do you know what? I like it. I also think as well we could time that really well to make sure that like certain number of cars have gone past the pit lane so that then they can't get that initial stop, and maybe that just kind of jumbles thing up a little bit, and the next thing you know, everybody's having fun.
Everyone's having fun as a group together. We're having fun.
the reality of the situation is that Max was still like 20 seconds ahead before the safety car came out, and then still finished 15 seconds ahead by the time that the race finished. So you add that all together, he'd have won by 35 seconds, and everyone would have gone, well, that's exactly what we knew was going to happen. So, well done, Max.
Max officially got bored this time as well. I don't know if you saw this on like the last lap where he radioed to GP and was like, watch the onboard, and then just started power sliding around the last couple of corners. It's like, Max, come on, my boy. Like, let's at least pretend that we're taking it seriously. Hey, we've got a few talking points.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can kind of tell that it's not really his bag at the moment. Because, I mean, the second he goes back home, he should jump straight on his racing simulator and just mucks around in a Mazda MX-5 with his mates. And seems to have as much fun, if not more so, than what he does driving a proper Formula One car. But I think that could be a story for another day. Not to say that it's the wrong thing to do. I think it's a great thing to do and a great way to spend your afternoon. But I think it does highlight the fact that actually proper stuff is just a bit dull. I think he was even quoted, wasn't he? Because they asked him about sprint races and he went, oh, to be honest with you, I think we're probably borderline actually racing too much anyway. Like, that just stinks of a bloke who just goes, this is so shit at the moment.
I am bored.
Yeah.
I'm bored in a Formula One car. Right, well, a lot happened. It was a sprint weekend. The sprint race itself was kind of okay. It was, as Crofty says a lot, better than a free practice session. And
True.
I would take that over an FP session every weekend. I felt like the weekend format probably worked a little bit better that way. It felt like it sort of crescendoed a little bit more.
Yeah. It's hard to. It's better than an FP3.
Yeah,
there's no
100%.
doubt about it. Whether it's financially sustainable, whether it's mentally sustainable for everybody concerned or not, as Max was kind of pointing out, is yet to be seen, and I suspect we're only going to get more of them as it develops. But I think, as you say, better than an FP3.
Yeah. Interesting. In quali, a moment for us to discuss and to garner some opinion on. So Mr. Sainz has stuck it in the wall in Q2, and the car was stopped for like a minute and a half. Red flag, everyone back to the pits. But because it got it going again, he was allowed to carry on, got himself out of Q2 into Q3, and obviously not to cut the drivers out in the process. Should he be allowed to do that? Or should there be almost fabricated repercussions if you have any level of... Calling it a crash is probably a bit much. He bumped the wall. But he then got to use that red flag time that he caused to replace his own front wing to then go again. And I know we've seen this before around Monaco and stuff. If you cause a red flag in a quali session, should you then be knocked out in that quali session in, I would even say, the bottom position of that session? So even if you set a P11 time, I think you should be bumped to the bottom of the session that was the last one you legitimately got into.
I can really see the logic that you're coming up with. And I think at the point you have a genuine negative impact on other people, which clearly causing a red flag whilst people are on laps and then messing up a set of new tyres and anything else like that. And then I think that's bad enough anyway to provide some kind of justification to, look, if you cock it up, then you've cocked it up. You are at the back of this set of where it was you started. But then almost as well to kind of benefit from the red flag that you caused and then still be able to progress. You can see why some people that wouldn't have made it through to Q3 would have felt a little bit aggrieved by that. He didn't park it in the wall on purpose, did he? Let's be honest about it. You don't want to go and do that. But I think at the point that you do that and the point that you upset other people, call it a day.
I think that's the big one, isn't it? Because there could have been someone on a flying lap on maybe their only remaining set of new softs that they had allocated for Q2 or something, and maybe they hadn't set a lap before that for whatever reason.
Yeah.
You could, he obviously hasn't in this case, you could deliberately take a front wing off. They're not that expensive, I dare say, a front wing, and I dare say F1 drivers are skillful enough to probably crash it. I think there was a suggestion that Alonso did that a couple of years ago, maybe at Mexico, I think. There was a suggestion that he maybe just ran it just a little bit too wide, spun it round and binned it off from there. But yeah, it just feels a little bit wrong, doesn't it? And I think it was Haas that protested it and were like, hang on, like, we've been knocked out. We had a clean session. This guy caused a red flag and he went in ahead of us. Like, I get it. I think it probably needs legislating a little bit, and there maybe needs to be some guidelines around Like if you slam into the wall but keep all four wheels going forward and then limp yourself back to the pits and you cause a double yellow, okay, maybe that you're still impacting other people, but at least you've not actively brought a stop to the session. But yeah, I think if you cause a red flag, you've ended
Particularly
the session.
as well, like I think if you cause the double yellows or the yellow flag or whatever, you then don't get the time to actually fix the car to get it back out again. I suppose
Clock's ticking.
It wasn't like a pit stop, change the front wing, send yourself back out again. You've probably taken enough time out there to have a proper check over of the car, make sure that everything is genuinely all okay, like gather your thoughts, reset the systems. And Ferrari possibly were in a situation where it's like, we'll just bolt on another pair of new ones anyway, and we'll go through. So yeah, cause a red flag, back of the grid.
Gonski. Speaking of back of the grid then, Mr. Hamilton.
Go.
Now, before we started recording, me and you have a little chat just to run over what we're going to discuss. And as a man that was working on Saturday when quali happened, you asked me, what happened to Lewis and why was he at the back of the grid? Yeah. And I had to inform you that he just cocked it up and that he hadn't received a penalty. He hadn't impeded someone, anything like that. He made an error into the final hairpin, cost him 6.5 tenths or something like that. And he qualified P18. And I have a simple question. And obviously he can still do it because he was like P2 or whatever for the start of the sprint.
Yeah.
Is Lewis's head in it? Or is he in his own head? Is he already in a bright red cap? Because it just seems to me, and obviously you get a very story-driven view of it based on what the TV director wants to show you from the radios and what bits of interview we get and whatever. But he seems to do a lot of complaining about cars and setups that aren't necessarily affecting George in the same way. Because George is pootling around in, P6, P7, sometimes fighting a little bit higher.
Yeah.
And Lewis is back in P15 complaining about the car and the setup. Something's not right there.
Kind of feels like it's been this way since this regulation change, though. I don't necessarily think it's kind of suddenly come in since Lewis has signed his couple of year contracts with the Scuderia. And I think he still can figure it out. Like you said, he finished second on the sprint race. He managed to go from last to ninth with the obviously the assistance of a couple of safety cars, which
had a decent enough race.
Yeah, it was all right, and showed that there was enough pace to be competitive amongst that midfield pack. Yeah, I mean, it's not like George is up there kind of winning the race by 15 seconds and Lewis is still running around in 13th or whatever. And I think the other thing to mention as well is the fact that clearly there's quite a high profile example of this is the fact that Max is out there winning the race by 20, 30 seconds each week, and his teammate in the same car, and you'd argue with the same kind of equipment and facilities and everything like that, is relatively speaking probably as far back, if not further back, in that gap between the two Red Bull teammates as what the two Mercedes teammates are. However, how motivated can you be driving a Formula One car that you know isn't going to win the championship for you? Plus, then you know that you're also going to leave the team and go somewhere else. And why would you then waste your energy and efforts and expertise and time developing a car that you're not going to drive next year?
Yeah, and he's probably not going to be, and he might be. I don't know. I don't feel like he's putting in overtime in the sim. I don't think he's probably gone straight back to Brackley and jumped straight in the sim and gone, right, let's fix this in the same way that he maybe would next year in red if he had a similar start to the season. I think he'd probably be like, right, get me a flight to Maranello. Let's jump in and sort it out. But no, I mean, as you say, he's a very good driver still, and he's just... And that's why I wonder if he's just in his own head a little bit, that, he comes onto these radio messages and stuff, and again, we only hear what they choose to play. I don't listen to all the onboards, and no, you're getting a very edited version of it. But he just seems to be looking outward for reasons why it's not going well, rather than almost just being like, right, visor down, like, this is the tool that I've got to work with. Let's work with it.
Yeah, hard to argue. I still, I'd love to come up with something compelling and something argumentative on that point, but it kind of feels like he'd win a race by mistake at the moment with Mercedes.
It's going to be like an Esteban Ocon, or a George Russell, like random, just made a good risky call in the rain, or someone's wiped out P's 1-7 in front of him. Probably Lance Stroll.
Could be Lance.
I suppose on that point as well, but around like Lewis is not going to be. Again, we're making broad generalizations. We've got no clue. He might literally be sat in the simulator right now. Fernando Alonso is the most motivated little puppy at the minute, it seems. I mean, he's driving incredibly well, but he popped something up in his story after the race. I mean, he had that big old moment, just dipping a tyre in the gravel, which, by the way, great addition of the gravel on that corner, because I realised I had seen a couple of Chinese Grand Prix before, and this was with the old track limits, I know, but they used to take the piss around that corner and essentially drive through the pit lane, just hanging it out around there. So that's a good addition of some gravel. But his his huge moment of essentially putting the car at a 90-degree angle to the direction it should have been going.
Yeah.
And his save on that, he's put a story up that in the winter he went and did what looks to be essentially some dune buggy gravel racing. And the two screenshots he shows, like his hands are in identical positions with a car near enough in identical position. One's a dune buggy on some gravel and one's the car on track. And I think it just shows you how in it Fernando is at the minute. This is not a bloke taking Daddy Stroll's money and running out the clock. This is a bloke that probably genuinely thinks like, I could get another world championship here if things go the right way.
Would he be thinking that? Do you know what? I reckon you'd have to be one of the most optimistic people on earth at the moment to think that you're up there for a world driver's title. I think he'd definitely be sitting there going, do you know what? I could come away with a couple of trophies this year, and potentially some of those might have a 1 at the bottom of them as well. I'm not convinced any of the other 19 drivers are turning up to work on the first day of January and going, you know what? Fancy my chances this year, lads.
Oh, I'm ignoring Max in that. I'm thinking that Max retires at the end of the year and that he has the ability. Yeah. Nothing matters with Max. All of my comments are based on a 19 driver grid.
Fine. Okay. Well, in which case then, I suspect there probably is a chance that he's sitting there going, you know what? I could come first/second in this world driver's title and I might get a trophy from Alex. And you never know, that might be something that he wants. It's interesting, isn't it? Like, he's clearly one of the best drivers that has ever sat in a Formula One car. And I think that's kind of proven by the fact of his versatility to go off and win and race at Le Mans and various other world endurance events and win that world championship as well, not just Le Mans. He then obviously had the ability to go off to Indy and sit in the Indy car. And you kind of say about motivation, but it's interesting because that was his big motivation, wasn't it, whilst he was at McLaren? It was like, this is what I want to do. I want to win the Triple Crown. That then didn't become possible because I think basically McLaren just didn't give him a car with the ability to do so. And I think going up against some of those other factory IndyCar teams probably was a huge gap. So you could argue and say, well, actually, is your motivation there, or are you just here because you know this is going to be an easier bet than trying to win that Triple Crown that you maybe failed at a couple of years ago? I don't know. I'm being a bit objective here, but I don't have any doubt in my mind he is one of the best drivers ever to drive in Formula One.
Yeah, and he's all in as well, isn't he? He is head down, and I think the amount of media work he's doing as well, you can tell he's actually bought into the whole thing because their media manager rinses that bloke for a meme and does it well.
If he's been given like the golden ticket and the key to the factory at the end of this contract, I mean, why would you not invest in it massively?
Yeah.
It really 100%. Would make sense to do so. And it's like sooner or later, and we'll talk about Lance next, but he will get binned off. Because if they have aspirations to challenge for titles and Constructors' Championships, you can't afford to carry that bloke around.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%.
Speaking of
100%. Should we talk about Lance Stroll then?
Do I get my first points of the year for blue flags for Danny Ricciardo for this?
I think so. Almost by default. I have written down on here, is Daniel Ricciardo cursed?
Could be.
Because what sacred burial ground has he gone and done burnouts on or something? Because that bloke at the minute, it was looking good for him this weekend. Yes. It was the opposite of your blue flags for a minute.
Yeah.
He got his new chassis that he seems to be more connected with. I don't actually know the technical ins and outs of what that change might have been, but he certainly seemed to be finding more pace, and he sort of dusted Yuki in quali, and there seemed to be a bit of a pace differential there.
Yep.
And then he gets in the race and he's running a relatively decent race. Okay, the strategy maybe worked a little bit against him. I think the the timing of the safety cars, yeah, they probably didn't work in his favor, but he was on set. He was on course for a good weekend that all of the Autosport articles wouldn't have been like, are they going to put Liam Lawson in the seat at Miami? All of a sudden, we would have been back to a status quo.
Yep.
And then Lance fucking Stroll has paid no attention to what's going on because he's sim racing and he's just checking his phone coming down into the hairpin. And he's gone up the arse of him. And I squealed. I squealed on the broadcast.
So did Danny Ricciardo.
So did Danny Ricciardo. And Oscar.
And Oscar.
Canada has waged war on the entirety of Australia in a scale not seen since the Emu War. I mean, come on, man. Like, he's just genuinely not paying attention. It was,
I reckon, at most about 14 days ago that we sat here recording one of these podcasts and you went, well, the thing is about Lance is he just drives around. He doesn't really affect anybody else. I can see why people kind of don't back him, don't rate him, but like he just muddles around doing his own thing. And now he's rear-ended your boy. And
ended two people's races essentially because he did Oscar as well.
Yeah, so. Of course. And I can see the anger in your face. I can hear it in the tone of your voice. And I feel I'll give you the opportunity that you may want to go ahead and just change your opinion of Lance Stroll from that of the one made 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean it's changing. It's certainly changing. I think my annoyance with him and this incident specifically, and it is something that we've seen before with him, and a lot of the drivers are guilty of it as well, that it's not necessarily just a Lance Stroll issue.
Yeah.
But the arrogance and the attitude and the untouchable way that he speaks on his team radio and his interviews and stuff, that was an indefensible fuck up by you, Lance. That was you as an individual have made that mistake there that has essentially ended the race for two other drivers. Mm-hmm. Come out and go, oh, okay, sorry, I was looking into the corner. I'd seen something. Yeah. I didn't realize it was all going to back up. Sorry, I wasn't quick enough on the brakes. Mm-hmm. And everyone would have gone, fair play. It's unfortunate. Yeah, you're at fault, but you've put your hand up. The fact that he's tried to blame other people and suggested that he's been brake tested by Danny Ric and just own up to it, man. You don't have to always be this arrogant, have this weird attitude that everyone's out to get you and that you're perfect. Like, I'm sure it's a enablement thing by Daddy Stroll, who literally bought him an F1 team. But just, you could have won yourself so many favors there by going, I've been and spoken to Daniel, like, apologized. It's a split second thing. I was just looking the wrong way at the wrong time. Couldn't react quick enough. These things happen in racing. And I would have gone, and I think everyone would have gone, you know what? Fine. Like, very unfortunate. But, I mean, Oscar's quotes are brilliant about it. That man is, I mean, I already liked him, but that man is growing on me with his incredibly dry sense of humor. But he came out and said, everyone else didn't crash into each other. I think that's just the kind of corner where you need to expect that people are going to concertina. It's like, whoo, yeah. Hello.
Yeah.
And he said, the hit was very, very hard. I looked at the car afterwards at my diffuser. I'm pretty sure that's not how the engineers designed it. That's a really nice way of brushing that off, I think. But
I mean, nothing's going to happen. As you said, I think there was a really good opportunity to hold your hands up and kind of go, you know what? Like, you don't do that on purpose, do you? That's an accident. No. That's a complete kind of cock up, and there's a really, really easy way out just to turn around and go, sorry, that's on me. And fair enough, there would have been a lot of people, and Danny Ric probably would have been one of them to go, no, you're a tosser, but you know what? Yeah. We'll move on. But did you see the post-race or paddock kind of media pen interview with Danny Ric afterwards? And he was kind of like, and I think he was along the lines of like, oh, I've kind of calmed down a bit. And then someone's gone, well, you know, he's saying it's your fault. And then, my word, there was a face like thunder on Danny Ricciardo after that. So I don't know if anybody's checked on the safety of Lance Stroll afterwards. But, I mean, if he's got a couple of black eyes when he turns up in Miami in a couple of weeks' time, I think we'll know why.
Yeah, I think the hardest working individual in Formula One this year is Daniel Ricciardo's media training. Because after the Yuki incident, he went and did an F1 TV interview where you could see him physically trying to push bad words out of his feet into the floor like some sort of earthing wire. And then again, in this paddock interview, you can see the cogs going in the back of his head that keep catching words that the media training has drilled into him. That he talks a lot, Danny Ric. He likes a conversation. And when you see him putting extra full stops and pauses because he's picking every word, you know that this is not Danny talking. Yeah. This is Daniel talking. This is.
I think of all the 20 drivers, he would be the one that I would really love to see just absolutely lose his shit in one of these things. I feel it'd be such good value. And to be honest with you, I feel there'd be a lot of good points in it as well. There might be a couple of C bombs. There might be some F bombs in there as well. But I don't necessarily think he'd miss.
No, I think you'd get a good read on it. A little bit like, and I am all over the links today, a little bit like Nico Rosberg. Ooh. I thought he was on Sky Commentary this week. He didn't have any Brundle, which is always a shame. A Brundleless weekend is a wasted weekend in my book. And I found listening to Nico Rosberg equal parts very, very good and very irritating from a broadcast perspective. And I think it's a little bit because I go behind the curtain on sports media-y type stuff. But what he would say a lot of the time, very insightful, very good. You can tell that he is a world champion and he knows a lot about what he's talking about and his subject matter.
Yeah.
But unlike someone like Martin Brundle, he's not got that media flow about him yet, that he doesn't know how to bring that across in a conversation on a broadcast. He is having that pub chat with you and he's flexing his knowledge. But the amount of times where you could tell that Crofty's normal cadence, he'd say something, he'd build it up, he'd leave a gap for his partner to start talking, and we would hear engine sounds. And then Crofty would start talking again because Nico hadn't offered him anything.
Yeah, he's an acquired taste. I think he's one of the perfect guys to kind of throw down to the pit lane too. Not to replace a Ted Kravitz or a Karun Chandhok or whatever, because I don't necessarily think he'd want to stand by the Sky pad or whatever it's called. But he'd be the perfect bloke to kind of, like a Damon Hill, for example. Like, he's been there, he's done it. Let's throw down at the end of the race or end of quali and let's have a chat with Naomi and Nico. And I think that fits really well because, as you said, he knows his biscuits, doesn't he, that boy? He knows his gear changes and he knows his split rear differentials and all that other stuff. Like the whole kind of tone of voice and the enthusiasm, I think, kind of stunk of a guy that's like, I can't really be asked to do this, but they're prepared to pay me a bit of cash to do it. So you know what? Fine. Probably gets like some sort of thing where he doesn't even pay any tax on it or whatever. I don't know. And it's probably
be Monaco-based, wouldn't he?
Yeah, so. It's like, oh, it's a nice way to spend a weekend. It's fine. I'll do a couple of them for you. But I never got the impression he was desperate to do it. And the other thing I think that always kind of stuck out for me as well, he was kind of the guy that Crofty would say something and he'd just go all the time, yeah, I agree with that. And that would be the end of the point. You'd go, right. And actually, as you said, as a broadcaster, and something that Martin has obviously had so many years experience from and learned from one of the very best in Murray Walker as well, you need a different skill set, I think. You need someone to engage with you. You need someone that's enthusiastic. You need someone that's going to bring you that extra bit of sprinkle. And would you believe that the German Nico Rosberg doesn't bring you the panache?
Yeah, I think every time he did have a point that he wanted to raise, it was very good.
Yeah.
And it was when they were trying to get stuff out of him that he didn't offer a huge amount. There were times where, so like through quali, Crofty did that thing that he always does with Brundle and goes, right, here we go. Here comes Max Verstappen down the start finish straight. Right, take it away, Martin. Mm-hmm. And he would talk you through the lap. Right, stick left here, throw it in here, a little bit off the brake. And Nico's obviously not used to that. And what I will say, he hasn't done this anywhere near as much. You raise a valid, a great point there that Brundle is doing this with his, eyes closed to sleep now. So I'm hesitating to be too critical, and that's why I'm very keen to make sure, like, he had some great things to say. But I think your point is perfect, that I want red button Nico. I want him to have a button to the producer, a little bit like Bernie Collins, I think, and the way they use her when she's on, that she obviously in the Teams meeting sits there quietly with her camera off, and then she'll have an idea, she'll put her hand up in the meeting, and then they'll go, oh, yes, Bernie, what would you like to say? And then because she, or in this case, Nico, have something they want to talk about, huge value.
Yeah.
It's when you're trying to get them to cover 90 minutes of airtime, the value gets diminished a little bit.
Yeah, it's really hard to argue that point. I mean, ultimately, they are going to have to start to look at some form of replacement, I guess, before long. I don't know how long Martin Brundle has aspirations.
He's obviously doing less already, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
He's already doing less each year.
He's got other things that he wants to do. He doesn't want to travel quite as much. That calendar is quite ridiculous now, as we spoke earlier.
Well, we've got 3 Crofty-less weekends this year as well, which is going to be a real switch for a lot of people.
Unheard of. And how many races are there now? Is it 24 races?
24.
24. So 24 weekends out of 52 is quite a large chunk of your life gone, and it isn't just going to be land on the Sunday, do your words, and then go home, is it? There's
Exactly. They're there from Wednesday, aren't they? Because Crofty acts as a journo as well, so he's in all the press briefings and stuff on the Thursday.
Yeah, of course. So it's 24 weeks away from home, and it is the whole span of the calendar year as well. And it isn't a surprise. So yeah, maybe they are going to have to look elsewhere. I know have they got that Alex Jakes, haven't they, to do a couple of bits? And I think he's kind of developing a bit of a motorsport voice, which I think people will resonate with. He's done a lot of the lower formulas, and I think it's kind of a name and a face and a voice that people will feel comfortable with and familiar. Is Nico the guy? Dare I say it? Probably no. But I tell you the other thing as well, though, just on the flip side, I don't know whether he's an easy option, because he doesn't strike me as the kind of bloke that actually races anything else. Like, Damon Hill will still probably go off and do the odd bit here and there. Jenson Button certainly does. He is a very busy boy at the moment, racing in all the different series that he does. I think Karun still does bits and bobs. Anthony Davidson, I think, certainly was, if not still does, various bits of WEC and IMSA and stuff like that. Whereas Nico,
I think he's also a Mercedes sim driver, I think, Anthony Davidson.
Yeah.
Or they're testing, correlation guy.
Whereas, as far as I'm aware, Nico kind of has done nothing since 2016 or whatever.
I think he's a Monaco YouTuber now. Genuinely.
Okay, fair enough. Just a
vlogger. I think he YouTubes. Yeah. I think he's a vlogger. I think it's a very valid point, though, that he knows his stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He is F1.
He's good.
You get a lot of F1 out of him. Work out how to use him to the best of what he can offer.
Figure it out. Can I just I don't know if you've got any more points on your checklist that you're going
That's
through.
Me done.
That's you done. Can I just kind of finish it off? And I know we were really critical about special helmets, weren't we, for people throughout the bits and bobs, and we didn't actually speak about Guan Yu Zhou, who had that free pass and he turned up with basically a tube map on his face.
Yeah.
Which I think, as you said over WhatsApp, looks pretty good. Is it the most inventive thing I've ever seen in my life? No, but it was, for a tube map on a helmet, it was well done. But I would like to say, and you might say no, but how bloody cool did it look from that front-facing camera in that Williams looking back at a Panda driving a Formula One car? Like, that just looked the bollocks. That camera shot there gave me everything I wanted and more the second I saw that helmet was launched by Alex Albon.
It was a jump scare every time.
So good.
Because you're just not used to it, and you kind of forget that he's got the helmet. Then it's like, oh God, it's a Panda. But no, it was good. It's a shame that, and I'm assuming that there's limitations on this with the way that the actual tech line. It's a shame that you can't do anything over the visor of the helmet. If he could have had the eyes being so high, just sort of took the edge off it. If those eyes had been there and staring into your soul every time they cut to it, incredible. But yeah, hearing Ted Kravitz giggle like a schoolboy when he talked about it for the first time, fair play.
Yeah,
very good.
Best one of the year.
Very good.
Best one of the year, hands down.
Yeah. I think, should we predict now ahead of next week? Because we're Miami next.
Yes, we
are. So let's finish off here with a prediction. How many special edition liveries and helmets are we going to see up and down the grid? Now, we can cheat because we already know there's a Ferrari one coming.
Yeah.
And we already know Max has already announced a special helmet for this weekend.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is one of Red Bull's 3 fan-designed ones or not. I can't remember. I know they're doing that again, and it was Miami last year. But
yeah, it was last year, wasn't it?
We certainly know there's a Ferrari blue livery coming, and there's because we needed another blue car in Formula One.
Sure.
And Max has got a new helmet, which is blue, shockingly.
No way.
How many helmets do you think we're getting, and how many cars do you think we're getting?
Cars, I think none more than what you've just said. because I think we've done Miami last year as a soft launch. I don't necessarily think people are going to get excited. I think there's a Ferrari lid. I don't know who's going to have it, but I think there's a Ferrari lid. There's a Max lid. Valtteri loves a lid, so there's 3. I think Lando loves a lid, which is 4. I can see a Logan. Obviously, it's an American race. There's a 5. Who else is gonna? I can see George. George will have one. There's 6. I'm sliding towards 7 or 8.
Okay,
but I can't. I reckon one of the Alpine boys are going to have a special helmet because they're going to have to do something to detract from the absolute turd of a car that they've got.
I think
I'm going.
And this is my big call. I always like to make a big call per pod.
Yeah.
I've seen a little tease on social as well, and they could be going the wind up again. I think there's a chance that the pink camo Alpine in some form shows up in Miami.
Well, it exists.
They seem to be teasing and suggesting
Rubbish
that maybe that livery might exist at some point during the year, and that kind of would vibe with Miami vibe.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with you. I think we are seeing no less than 5 special helmets. I think Danny Ric probably rocks a helmet because I think he's got Miami vibes. I think it'll be Carlos that'll run a helmet because I think Charles already had his Jules helmet, so I think and obviously George went in this race, as did Valtteri. So whether or not that scuppers those two, would they go back to back?
I don't think it matters. I think they're doing it.
Lando is definitely going a lid. He has previously. He's definitely going a lid. Max is in. Checo, I don't think will. I don't know why. I just don't think Checo will. But yeah, I probably would have landed on 7 as well.
Yeah.
But just to be different to you, I'll go 1 below and I'll say 6.
Okay.
But I also think I'm 6, and I think at least 1 more livery on top of Ferrari. I think Alpine might do something.
I like it. I'd love to see that pink camo. And I don't really think it would make a difference if it makes the car a ton heavier.
No.
It's still going to be shit.
Yeah, 100%. Right, where can they find you on the internet, Mr. Jadzovich?
On the internet at the @DanJads_, doing various cricket things.
All sorts of things. You can find me, Alex Type That, on most things, or you can follow me on Twitch. Hey, look, it's Alex, and come play some games with us. You can follow the podcast at LapdownPod on just about everything. Or you can email lapdownpod@gmail.com. We'll be back next week for a little Miami preview. What was that, sorry?
Are we still shadow banned on TikTok, or are we back?
It's getting better.
Okay, we're back.
No, I think we're a little bit back. We're a little bit back. But go and follow and send some comments in on there. Why not? Help the algorithm.
Yeah.
On YouTube as well. YouTube Shorts like us. But that's us for this week. We'll see you next week for a little bit of a Miami preview. Toodaloo.